to welcome Dan Edwards here today. Dan is someone who I've known for a long time. Great guy, incredible coach, even better person to be on a night out with. But for the purpose of today's conversation, we're going to do things a little bit differently. We're going to have a Q&A. People have put in a ton of questions that they're desperate to have us answer, Dan. So before we get into it, and apologies for rushing you, but I've got an 8:05 train to catch. Can you just give a bit of kind of backstory to who you are and what it is you're currently doing? Because I think there are a lot of opinions out there, and some hold more weight than others. In my opinion, yours being one of them. So talk to us about who Dan Edwards is and what he currently does.
Yeah, let me know if my signal goes. But yes, I'm a one-on-one coach. I've worked, with a few big name players. Currently, just concentrating on being a one-on-one technical coach. I've got a 12-year-old son, so I've done the whole sort of grassroots coaching these teams to now being a soccer dad, where I'm just on the touchline as he's at an academy. So I've kind of experienced working with Raheem Sterling, coaching him when he was an under-10, to now 20 years later working with him. So sort of, just knowing players' journeys from grassroots academies, hitting puberty, to the rejection, the highs, the lows, the very small percentage of highs. But no, happy to be a part of it.
But listen, let's get straight into it, man. As I said, there's 1,000,001 questions, and I'm sure loads of those, everyone who sent in a question is probably watching right now and would like to know. So first question is from DeCastro_88. And his question is, playing a year up in academy football, under 9s through to under 16s, does it matter? Is it important? What are the positives and negatives? Can you explain?
Academy football is a great foundation to develop your skills and to be in a structure, to be in an environment where you can develop as a player on and off the pitch. But it's been proven time and time again, it's not always the way to go if you want to make it as a professional footballer. So yes, it is a great avenue to go down, and there are a lot of opportunities and experiences that you will achieve. But as I'm sure you'll explain to them, the percentage and the chances, the likelihood that you're going to make it are very, very slim. But in terms of for the experience, the opportunities, it's definitely a great way to watch your players.
Yeah, I think that's a really great answer, because obviously you've explained that, fundamentally speaking, it's a great foundation because you're probably, one, the training's obviously free. Two, the coaches will tend to be qualified to a certain level. Three, you'll be playing with what is deemed the best, players in that area. And all these things are great. It just doesn't necessarily equal your child's development. So you do have to be very mindful of that. And as Dan says, like, the stats of people going through academies and becoming professional football players is like 0.01%. So statistically speaking, academy football hasn't even shown itself to be successful in terms of creating pros. Although that being said, there's only X amount of places at any given time. So, I don't know whether those numbers will necessarily change. But I think it's important to, be more mindful about academy football in terms of whether or not academy football is for you. And the one thing I would say also to the question itself is that, and Dan, let me know your thoughts, it's never, whether they're playing up, down, sideways, backwards, front ways, it doesn't really matter. It's all about development. And through those ages, in particular, like, your thoughts as a parent should always be development. Is my child developing? I don't know if you share the same sentiment there.
Yeah, definitely. And I think what I notice, and even at a grassroots level as well as an academy is how stressful it is on the touchline, how the players push their parents' buttons at an under 10, under 11, under 13 level. And it's just understanding the journey that the players are going on. So where you are as a parent, frustrated, annoyed, wound up at how your child has performed at an under 13, under 14 level, in the hindsight of things, it literally, it makes no difference. It's literally just about the month-on-month, season-on-season development of that player, rather than game by game. You've had a poor game this game, and it just pushes your buttons, and then it just ruins the experience for the player. And over time, you're just gonna lose that player. They're gonna lose the love for the sport. They're not gonna. Whose dream is it? Is it the child's dream? Is it the parent's dream? But yeah, development is the most important thing. And don't get me wrong, I get it myself. Watching Thea had a game today at QPR, and there will be times where they've done a mistake, like how you're watching Chelsea City. The pros make mistakes, and they're on 200, 300,000 a week. So if you're being affected like that with your under 10, under 12, under 14-year-old child, wait until it really matters if they reach that elite level.
Okay, brilliant. So I've just gone to, so there's obviously questions on my phone that I've got written out, and there's questions on here. So someone said, what's the best way to get signed as a top under 17 grassroots player?
I'll let you answer that one, because you might not like
my answer.
Well,
I'm not sure they'll like mine either. My answer is, who decided that this player is a top under 17s player or grassroots player? And if they are a top under 17s grassroots player, why are they not currently in an academy? Why have they not currently, have they been scouted before? Have they gone into the academy environment and then been released? Have they gone on trials that have been unsuccessful? I think I would need more context to, what a top player is, who's determining that, because maybe the parent who asked this question, or the friend of the parent, or whoever, actually needs to have a conversation with the people who probably have access to that information. Would be my answer.
Yeah, my thing is, being a top player at a grassroots level means very little in the academy game. I genuinely feel the environment, the standard that you're playing in, you get a lot of trialists that come into the academy environment that are amazing at the grassroots level, hence why they've been invited in. And it's just having that jump between grassroots to academy. And I feel the amount of scouts, the amount of tournaments, the amount of networking, and everyone knows everyone in the world of football, especially if you're in West London or Southeast London. If you are that good, you will get spotted and you will get an opportunity. If you're not, especially at that age as well, I genuinely feel once you're 13 years old, it's more and more difficult from 13. The year they start offering 2-year contracts, you can't just be as good as what they have in the academy, as they've invested time and money into them players.
I would agree. Just to kind of harp on the point that you just made about, what the difference between what a grassroots player and an academy player is that, like you said, the two, they're not mutually exclusive. You can be brilliant at grassroots, but yet not have the necessary like qualities and skill set to be an academy player. And that might not even be ability wise, that might be mentality wise. I think a lot of we really, really do neglect and dismiss the attitude side, and a lot of what it takes to be a footballer is coachability. I mean, we're fortunate enough to have Dan here, who is, one of the top one-to-one coaches in the world, who, coaches players who, have been in Champions League finals and everything, underneath and above in terms of World Cups. So, I just think it's really important that if you want to be an academy player, a professional player, you have to do the things that professional players are doing. And a lot of times we neglect the off-field stuff because we're like, oh, well, technically I'm as good as so-and-so, or I can do this. Yeah, but are you disciplined? Are you coachable? Are you well-mannered? Do you communicate well? There's all of these things that you have to take into consideration when looking at the difference between grassroots and academy. But moving on to our next question, it says, my boy is a centre midfielder with a great engine. Academies don't appreciate his ability. Why?
I get, you know, and this is the problem. You will get a lot of one-on-one coaches, a lot of people involved in football that are very nice with what they say to parent and players. That's not my cup of tea. I think players and parents need to be told the truth. They may not like it, but sometimes the truth hurts, and that's football. It's about being realistic, and there's a lot of coaches and scouts that tell you what you want to hear, or just tell you the same story. If you're released, don't worry, we're sending scouts out. And they will send scouts out, but there's 26 players that are going to be playing, including the subs. And for you to stand out, if you was released or if you haven't been spotted, depending on the player's age as well, like, it is so difficult. And it's about the consistency and, like you said, being coachable. What you will get is a lot of raw players that are very good technically, or have an engine, but can they adapt and sustain a place in an academy environment, training, playing games 3-4 times a week, hygiene, showering around the boys, having the diet, nutrition, the strength and conditioning. It's not just about what you can do on the pitch, especially the older that you get. I think pre-academy up to maybe sort of under 11s, everybody has the opportunity to be coachable. But once you start year 7, under 12s, you kind of get to see what their characteristics are like, and is this somebody that you want to invest a 2-year contract in? Because if you don't think they're going to fit the philosophy or the requirement of 3-4 times a week, turning up on time, wanting to train, not having an attitude, and everyone can have an off day, but coaches have been in the game long enough to know straight away, he's coachable, he's going to work for me. And it's with life in general as well, your boss, and it's not just a football thing.
Really interesting question that I'm going to pitch to you, and I'm actually reading now. And funny enough, I had a conversation with my son earlier today, not about this, but in terms of kind of things around attitude and giving life a bit more context. So this question is from Rob Oddy 2, and he says, a little bit random, but what advice would you give a parent about how to deal with getting rejected by a club?
I had this conversation with Sean. This would have been about 6 months ago, in terms of should they, because the majority of parents, the moment you're released from a club, right, let's go on trial somewhere else. Let's go on trial somewhere else. And I'm totally against it. I feel if a player has been released, psychologically what that's done for them, I would like my son, once he's released, go back to grassroots, and we'll see then what happens. If he goes back to grassroots for a season, half a season, and sets the world on fire and his best player stands out, then I know, do you know what? He's ready to go. But there's so many parents, their child's released, and then they go on trial somewhere else, and they're not accepted. And it's just the psychological damage that's doing to the players. I don't know what your thoughts are like.
I think there is this almost impatience to kind of go, from one thing to the other, and it's probably an opportunity for you as a parent to go, okay, what was the feedback we received? What areas were you lacking in, or what was it that the academy that you had just been at were currently looking for that you weren't capable of doing? So I tell you what we could do now. We can actually go and find a one-to-one coach or a small group session that will enable you to get the specific requirements, your specific requirements met. Because this is the thing with academies, right? It's like you said, you might have a group of 26 kids, and if you're in the top 5 or 6, then great, because you're always going to excel, you're always going to get the plaudits, you're always going to be the ones that people pay most attention to and probably devote the most time to. It's just the nature of life, let alone sport. But what do you do when you're the bottom six? Like, how do you get that one-to-one time? Who, you know, praises you for your effort in the process, but not necessarily executing your goal, right? Which is super important because it is really process over destination or achievement. So going back to grassroots and maybe getting a one-to-one coach or being a part of a small group that's really intense and can help you hone that skill, I think it's almost like, okay, it didn't work. Let's go back to the drawing board. Do you know what I mean? What areas do we need to improve? What things do we need to get better? What things were a waste of our time? Let's go about doing that and then look to maybe dip our toe back in or showcase ourselves in different areas. But before I give you the next question, I'd just like to welcome everyone that is currently joining us, because obviously people are coming in this conversation constantly. And I just want to welcome everyone, let them know that we're really grateful to have them at the #1 podcast for your child becoming the best footballer that they can possibly be. And as well as taking questions on here and questions that people have put in already, it would be great if there are parents or coaches on here that have any questions that would like to join the conversation to add their question in. But moving on, my next question to you is, what is the best advice you would give to a young player between the ages of 9 and 10 to manage a dip in confidence? They're currently playing at an academy and training at a high level in small groups, but recently they've had a dip in confidence. And when they're playing for their grassroots team, things aren't going too well. Would love your thoughts, as it's a new experience for me as a parent. And that's coming from Jay Galliani. I hope I pronounced that right.
I think the most important thing for each player to understand, every young player, is what's happening with professional footballers. Some of the best players in the world. Messi misses penalties, misses open goals. Rashford isn't having a great season. And this is football. This is life. And I think it's making it relatable to players, especially in their position or who is their favourite player. There will be something that is relatable, whether it's Haaland going a certain amount of games without a goal or just missing an opportunity. And it's just making them understand that this is football. You're not going to have a career, a training session where everything, you tick all the boxes, or you're always going to score every opportunity, or as a goalkeeper, you're going to have a clean sheet every single game. And I think if you can relate that to Marcus Rashford, if you can relate that to a player that they admire, their role model, and just say they had a dip in form. Mbappe lost the World Cup. Somebody had a chance to win it, they didn't. And it just making it relatable to professional footballers so that they understand this happens at the top end. And if you want to be a professional footballer, you have to understand there's going to be lows, but it's the best players that can overcome them lows, overcome them challenges. And it doesn't even have to be in a game. It can be injuries. So it's just, my advice is, and Theo, my son, when he gets to a certain level or a certain age and he has a dip or he is low in confidence, and that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to explain to him. He's reading Marcus Rashford's book at the moment, hence why I keep mentioning him. But it's just, they're role models and letting them know that's football.
Decky83, how important is it to train and play with higher level players at grassroots? Son is currently very dominant in a mixed ability team at under 9s. Do we need to move to a higher level team to progress?
You want to answer that one?
I mean, I would say, I would say, I guess. If the goal is to always develop and you are excelling in that environment, then what you need to do now is to find, your next ceiling, so to speak. So, clearly you got your feet firmly on the ground, doing really, really well, building lots and lots of confidence. So that should be like the next run on the ladder now that you're looking at. So going to a new team or just being in an environment that now pushes you and challenges you to be a better version of yourself and continue to develop. I guess for me, that's quite a simple one. I don't know your thought.
Yeah, I think with regarding the team, it might not be as easy to move teams. If this is a training session, then yeah, that's find a better training session or a session that's more technically demanding. If it's not possible to move teams, I'm not just saying get a one-on-one coach because that's what I do, but you need to find an environment where your child is pushed. And my thing when I'm coaching players is it's making players feel comfortable in uncomfortable situations, environments. So they have to be training where they're getting worked and they're struggling, they're finding it difficult, but they're being tested. If they're having a training session and it's too easy, yeah, if it's a recreational thing or it's just a leisure for them to enjoy it and have fun, that's fine. Let them have fun. However, the goal is to develop your player, develop your child. So what environment can you put them in to make them as good as you can?
Okay, let me take one more. Oh, so I've got so there was a question that I wrote down earlier, and it came from, let me find it. So I think it's a really good question because obviously we're speaking to parents, but you know, the whole point of this also is to, and I'm saying this, I don't want to speak on Sean and Project Footballer's behalf, but I'm going to make the assumption that it's about improving the landscape. And seeing as this is the #1 podcast for helping children become the best player that they can be, a coach messaged, and their question was, and this is from Carl Dunmore. He said, hi Sean, looking for some advice regarding coaching. I've been unsuccessful numerous times with the FA courses, but I've taken it upon myself to read and watch as much content as possible. Other than your own content, which I love, can you recommend any courses, books, socials to help me along the way? Cheers. So this is a coach that's looking to upskill himself.
It depends what your goal is. If you want to work in professional football, the FA have set guidelines to working in grassroots, you need a level 1. To then academies, a level 2, B license, A license. So if your goal is to become working full-time football, working professional football, you need qualifications. If you just need a level 1, everyone, and it's changed now anyway. The FA have changed it now. But social media, Instagram, saving videos and the explore page, like you can just, the best coaches are the best thieves. Like I will see a session, I will steal that session and make it my own. And I think that's what good coaches do. Just learning from each other. It's a competitive environment. I'm as competitive as the next coach, whoever you're working with. But how can you make an imprint into the coaching world? And once you get an opportunity, then you need to back what you're doing, what you're saying. So as long as you're confident with what you believe in, and if it's when I was younger, I needed session plans. I needed to write down A to B to C to D. Whereas now I just know it, and I've coached 20 plus years. But it's just making sure that you do your research, you know the standards, you know the age groups, you know how can you progress a session, how can you make it easier. The FA have a lot of free resources as well. As difficult as the FA are, they have a lot of free resources for people that want to be coaches that aren't professional academy coaches. You're at the biggest club in the world, Manchester City. So what's it like in terms of how do they educate their coaches? People that aren't
it's
coaches?
Interesting because they're currently doing there's two. There's a coaching scheme and there's an EDI coaching scheme. And the coaching scheme is brilliant because they're taking coaches from obviously the local area and upskilling them. They're showing them, how they plan their sessions, the types of sessions that they do if they want to bring out a certain skill. So which I think is brilliant because now they're essentially upskilling grassroots coaches in the local area who then will hopefully nurture and develop more children in the local area who will then hopefully become children that come through the city academy, who will then hopefully be a child that either gets into the first team or is an asset who can be sold on to create value for the team or the organization, but also give the child themselves an opportunity to, live their dream of becoming a professional football player. So that might be one to look out for. I don't know if that's the same kind of where you're at, Dan, or any other clubs that, you know, might be just hosting like coaching CPDs or anything of that nature.
I think that's where the FA have realised, due to the lack of course availability, where they put on the local FAs, the Middlesex FA, London FA, they'll put on lots of sort of different 3-hour evening courses. But if you go on Twitter, just Google coaching sessions, you will find an Arsenal under-9, under-10 season planner, and it will have every single one of the sessions that they've done in 2011. However, you can adapt them sessions and it gives you a full season. So as a coach, are you just looking for one-to-one, just passing? Are you just looking at technical aspects? However, if you're a coach that wants to work throughout the whole season, there's lots of season planner training sessions online, and steal them, make them your own, and yeah, just make them your own. I think that's Brilliant. Each coach is different.
Brilliant. Domob, how do you handle or adapt your coaching your son versus other people?
I don't think, coaching your son, there's that button in you. They know how to press it. They know how to press that button. It is, and it's speaking to every coach. It's watching your child is bad enough. Coaching your child, there isn't, if you know the recipe, sell it and you will be a millionaire. And this happens from me coaching. You've probably done the same. Theo as an under 5, under 6, and it's there isn't it's a recipe for disaster. But you will be on that journey. If Theo wasn't at an academy now, I would be his under 12 coach. You just follow that pattern unless there was another coach there.
It's a difficult one, as Dan says. If you've got the recipe, sell it because you'll be a millionaire. Unfortunately, I don't think there is one for that apart from chewing a lot of gum, which is what I used to do to try and keep me calm. But Roman_RL9 says, would you pick a Cat 3 academy with one side that seemed focused on development, or a Cat 2 who have two teams, a lot bigger club, but seem to be focused on looking good and winning?
The fact that you've got them options, you're in a better position than the majority of parents and players. I don't know if there is a right answer, because whatever you pick, you're going to then think in 6 months when something's not working, we should have done this, we should have done that. And it's like each academy, head of recruitment, academy manager is a great car salesman. They will all tell you this, and it's just like agents as well. They tell you the same thing. And it's just, where do you get a feel for what's going to be the best environment for your son to develop personally?
No, totally agreed. I think it really just does depend on what it is you're looking for. If you're looking, for a team or an academy that wins every week, then great, there's your answer. If you're looking for real development and you trust in the long-term development plan, then Cat 3 is your answer. I just think it really just comes down to what it is you're looking for at any given moment in time.
And it depends on the age. Did you say under 10?
Didn't say under 10, no.
Or did you not? Okay. Well, so depending on the age, if you are a scholar, if you are a under 21, then you want Cat 3. Where are you going to get the first team experience straight away? If you are an under 13, under 11, then it really does vary on what stage of your development you're at, or what age you are.
Another question here, it says, seems like most kids in pre-academies are Q1 and Q2. When does this level out? What age?
You can answer this one, because you're probably more knowledgeable than me.
people put too much stock in that. And the reason I say that is because when I made my debut at 16, I was 16. And the people I were playing against were fully grown men. Now, I'm a December baby. So what's that? Is that Q1 or Q1? So that's Q1. But I mean, does Q1 matter when you're 16 playing against 25, 26, 30-year-olds? And I do understand that it pays, it's difficult when we're talking about children and they're a lot younger. I believe that, again, you have to look at different ways in which to help develop your child. So I was having this conversation with a parent today. His son is 5, who I coach. Dad's really tall. Mum's small-ish, but son at this moment in time is small. May grow tall like dad, may not. Who knows? But I said, I played with a lot of small players. And the one thing that they excel, that allowed them to excel, was that they weren't scared of contact. And I think a way in which you can help Q3, Q4 children excel in those early developmental ages is to have them doing like combat sports, like karate, jiu-jitsu, kung fu, wrestling. All of these things help them, 1, become stronger, 2, have better balance, and 3, get used to contact, which the vast majority of them will be afraid of when they're playing against a bigger boy. They'll either play on the outskirts of the game or dip their toe in and out again, you know, through fear of contact from bigger boys. And I think, who's that? Cool Hand _ Luke put, you know, gymnastics in, all of these things that help them build a better relationship with their body and, you know, make them braver around contact. I think that's a huge thing for kids in Q3, Q4 in those early developmental stages, is what I would say.
Yeah, totally agree
my
with you.
answer. Right, let's see what else we got. So someone here says, how do you fix a child's pace? How do you fix a child's pace, Dan?
But again, like, some of these questions are, if you had the recipe, and this is the problem. So I'm seeing a lot more now over the last year or two, sort of young players doing it with S&C coaches. And again, some are pro, some aren't, some are against. Until you can work on techniques, you can work on foot patterns. However, working on speed, 1, I do think it's genetics. I think it's playing to your strength as well. You get so many parents that are like, my son isn't quick, I want to work on his speed. My son's not strong, I'm going to get him an S&C coach. However, yeah, it's realistically, your child isn't going to be a quick player. So how can you develop his strengths rather than focusing on his weaknesses? I spoke about in the last podcast where we said about super skills. Instead of worrying, is he quick enough? Realistically, a coach isn't going to, unless you are going to be an athlete, a sprinter, and you're going to dedicate your career and training 4 times a week to being a sprinter, then a coach isn't going to be able to make you quicker. He can teach you techniques, but teaching you techniques sprinting is completely different to teaching you techniques sprinting when you've got the ball at your feet or you're running after the ball. So yeah, you can Google, you can YouTube running techniques to help you improve your form. However, I would flip it on its head and be like, right, what is your child's super skill? What are they really good at? And how can you master and develop that skill rather than thinking, yeah, let's concentrate on running. And the problem now is when young players have S&C coaches and sprint coaches, it's gonna hit in puberty, triggering little injuries, putting more load on their hammies, their glutes. The parents are seeing it, right, I'm gonna make them quicker, but the sports scientists, depending on what age the player is, sports scientists will be totally against it because they're working on them fundamental movements at training. So they will naturally become stronger and quicker, but realistically, if they're not quick or the quickest now, they're not going to be the quick or quickest in a year or 2 years' time, even
Yeah, no,
training. My
I
thoughts.
agree with you. Everyone, and Watson and I, obviously, we have this conversation all the time, and he speaks about everyone can get quicker, but like you said, everyone has a ceiling, right? It's genetics. It doesn't like Usain Bolt could sit down for the next 10 years and not do a single thing, and I could train every day for the next 10 years, and he could get up off the sofa and run 100 meters quicker than I ever could. It's just that is just something that I can't possibly do. But again, you know, talking about the four corners of football, the tech, physical, social, psychological, it's like, okay, how do does your child need to be quicker, or do they need to have a better, like quicker speed of thought? Like, do they need to take a better first touch? Do they need to take up better positions on the pitch? Are they able to do something in 2 touches as opposed to taking 3 or 4? Do they even need to be receiving the ball there? Like, is that so? It's just kind of like, I think we look solely when when we're looking at creating a player, it becomes very much symptoms as opposed to cause. And it's like, okay, so the symptom is that they're not fast enough. Okay, but what's the cause of that thought? What's the cause of the lack of speed? Is it a case of they're not fast enough, or is it a case of them just not being technically good enough to execute things quicker? Because you know we have players like Modric still in the game at 37 and 38, playing in Champions League, winning Champions League final, playing in Champions League final, you know, still bossing football. So it's like, how can we possibly have players like that? We have a Bruno Fernandes who, you know, I mean, one of the top assisters in Europe. So it's like we have players who aren't blessed with athleticism. And I just named those 2. There's loads more who aren't blessed with athleticism. But there's 4 corners to football, not 1. So it's really important, as you say,
So for the parents that aren't aware of the 4 corners, could you just explain
so
that?
you have technical, tactical, which is obviously your understanding of the game, and then your technical ability. So, you know, side foot, lofted pass, you know, 5-yard pass, 10-yard pass, shot, header, control, all of those things. Tactical, obviously, you know, tactics as in like formation, where you stand when, you know, you're defending, where you stand, where you're on the ball in relation to obviously where the ball is and where the opposition have the ball. Psychological, so the mental challenges around the game. So like we said before, dipping confidence, performing poorly, being injured, getting substituted, not being able to affect the game, and then the reverse, like dealing with, you know, playing really well consistently. Then you've got social, okay, your communication, how you are in the group, your ability to get your point across, your ability to take on board criticism, and then you've got physical, which is obviously, you know, your running, your jumping, your speed, your power, so on and so forth. So those are the 4 corners of football. So yeah, it's just important that we looked at it like holistically as opposed to just going, they're not fast enough, because we can end up, as you say, down a rabbit hole, and we can completely miss ways in which we can increase speed in the game without actually having to increase your speed.
And I think that point there will save parents a lot of money. If your child isn't quick, don't waste money on getting a speed coach or an S&C coach. YouTube, Google sprinting technique, running techniques that you can do yourself, and then look at the bigger picture. How can you improve their first touch or their vision just before they receive the ball, or their movement before they receive the ball? So although they're not the quickest, they don't need to be the quickest. If upstairs they're on it and they're 1 step ahead, communication, then that will be a lot more easier and cheaper than spending money on an S&C coach or a sprinting coach that realistically isn't going to make them faster, will just change their technique, but you can do that yourself.
Just because we answered the question and it looks like Gelani, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, is here. He said, what's the best way? And this is, let's remember the question about the dipping confidence and form. So he has asked, what's the best way to manage this situation as she seems, sorry, I'm just pinning the thing, as she seems to be confused by how the coaches are telling her what to do?
I think confidence is the biggest thing in football. Some people will say the technical side of things, some will say how physical you are. For me, confidence is the most important thing. Me as a coach, how I want to be seen, how I coach my players, confidence is the most important thing. And with my son Theo, who's an under 12, his games are filmed, and I have a highlight on my Instagram just because it's easier for me to show him all of these clips. And before every game, I just press the highlight and he watches it. And it's just for him to realize what he's good at, what he's done well. You're going to make mistakes. And he's a defender. So the mistakes that he makes is defending, the hardest position. We won't go into that. But the mistakes that he makes are very costly. Whereas he's had the last 2 games he's played in midfield and he's made the same mistakes, but it hasn't cost a shot or a goal. So it's very important if you're able to film your child or show them clips of when they've done something well. Just letting them know. And what is the process on your way to training? Theo has his own playlist. So when we're on our way to training, he's playing his own music. The questions that I ask him is just funny, jokey questions, just to get him relaxed, get him in the mood to train, rather than him thinking, oh, I've got to go to train, I've not done too well. So it's just about sort of how you plant that seed with your child. You'll know what some players that I've worked with that are very young, sort of under 10, under 11, like to be bollocked, like to be battered. That can take, some players like to be told, you're not doing this, you need to do this, and it's that kick up the bum that they need. And then all of a sudden you see a new player. You get some players that when they get fouled in a game and don't get the decision, the aggression that they have, that's what they need. That's their trigger. As long as you know your child or your players, what is their trigger to get the best from them? And when they have a dip in form, plant the seed. Do they need an arm round them? Do they need to be told how great they are? Do they need time to themselves? Do they visually need to watch them scoring loads of goals or loads of skills for them to realize this is how good you are?
No, brilliant. I hope that answers your question, Gelani. And if I'm pronouncing your name wrong, please don't hesitate to batter me in my DMs. And again, for those of you who are still joining us, I just want to remind you that this podcast is renowned for being the #1 podcast in terms of allowing your child to be the best footballer that they can be. Very fortunate tonight to have Dan Edwards with us, top one-on-one technical coach, works with the likes of Camavinga, Tuvmeni, Koundé, Raheem Sterling, just to name a few. We'll drop Jesse Lingard and Danny Welbeck in there as well. But this is the type of caliber of person that we're really, really fortunate to speak to. So I'm both pleased that you've joined us this evening, and that you all, community who are here, are fortunate to hear this conversation.
Can I just say one thing? Sorry, because football is all about opinions, and something that I say or you say, there's a parent that completely disagrees, and that's fine. Every player is different, every coach is different. It's just about the journey, what you've experienced, and I feel with the guests that Project Footballer have had on their podcast, with myself and your experience, I feel it's not just a case of you were a professional footballer, you've experienced, you're now a coach, your son was in academy football, you've experienced being a football dad, you've experienced life as a and I think yes, our opinion may be completely different to yours, but we've all had very different experiences, and some have experienced it at an academy, a professional level, a grassroots level, and it's just finding, there might be you might prefer his opinion or Marcelo's opinion. And I feel that the Project Footballer brings you such a wide selection of coaches, parents that have experienced football, coaching, grassroots, academy at a different level. And it's just about educating the parents who are then going to educate their children.
Most definitely. Uh, so, question, interesting. Well, it's more of a statement than anything here. Football is actually more about systems, processes, and end results more than opinions. Some opinions are neither here nor there. What would you say to that?
Opinions pay the bills. Opinions make decisions. Opinions get you released. And the problem is that it's the people's opinions in academies that decide whether or not you're retained or you're released. And again, it goes back to, are you coachable? What type of player are you? The problem is you can get released, a player that got released from QPR, signed for Fulham. Player that got released from QPR, signed for Chelsea. A player that got released from Man City may not have got into Liverpool. So it's a matter of opinion. And some you get, some you don't. And that is football. However, the higher you are, Cat 1s, Cat 2s, the more difficult and challenging it is. So I don't know what your thoughts are on that.
No, I agree. Opinions pay the bills. Like, if football was strictly objective, then you would see a completely different 11 put out every week at, like, you know, at the lowest level and at the highest level, because we all have preferences, whether that's, you know, personality, whether that's playing style. You know, some people will argue that they prefer Messi over Ronaldo and Ronaldo over Messi, and really the only thing that splits him is preference. Aside from a World Cup, the only thing that really splits him is preference. You know, and there's a multitude of other players that you can, you know, pit up against each other and go, oh, well, no, I would prefer him or her because of this. And I might say, oh, no, well, I would prefer, you know, I prefer a Doku over a Grealish, or I prefer a Foden over a Maddison. And it's like, well, you're okay with both of them in your side, but you're going to go with whichever one you prefer stylistically. You know, at the end of the day, there has to be a differentiating factor, and whatever that factor is down to the individual. So yeah, as I said, opinions pay the bills. Moving on to our next question, though, it says, needs to find help. Needs to help my child receive the ball with better angles. What do you suggest?
Getting a one-on-one coach. Honestly, and I sound like a broken record. I'm not saying get a one-on-one coach, because that's what we do. But when you're training with your team, the coach's job is to work on the whole team, is to work on the group of players, develop the group of players. When an individual makes a very small mistake, some of the coaches aren't qualified enough or just don't have the time or experience to see these little errors that they're making. If there is something that you as a parent, if you cannot coach it yourself or show them examples online, and again, YouTube, how to create space as a player, you will find Xavi, and you will find all these video clips. So they might be a visual learner, they can see it visually, but then can you give them a one-on-one coach to then put them in that environment so they're learning it on a one-on-one basis, so that when they move into the team game, can they then do it when they're opposed, when they've got pressure, when their back is to goal, when they're receiving on their back. There's so many different ways in which to help your child, but they need to learn it in their own environment. First of all, they need to be comfortable making mistakes, and when they're making mistakes at training, they're going to lose their heads, it's going to knock their confidence, they're just going to play it safe. However, if they can get used to making mistakes in a one-on-one situation, once they rectify their mistakes, they can then do that again in a training session, I feel.
Right, so 2 more questions before we have to love you and leave you. So this question is from Cool Hand Luke. Is there a big difference between Cat 1 and Cat 2? My son's been offered a Cat 2 that is 20 minutes away and a Cat 1 that is an hour away.
Right, I need to forget the Cat 1s, Cat 2s. As a parent, as a father, as a mother, a guardian, you go wherever is closer to you as a family. It's not going to be the be or end all if you're traveling 20 minutes or an hour. However, your son or daughter that is at an academy has woke up at 7 o'clock, gone to school, had a full day at school, then come home, may have homework, may have to have a snack. You then got to travel an hour, they've got to train 2 hours, they've got to travel an hour back, they've got to shower, they've got to have a bite. It's very, very difficult. Depending on the level, if you're a scholar and it's Manchester City or it's Crewe Alexandra, then yeah, there's a big difference. However, the most important thing is you guys being a family, is the support that the child, in my opinion, the most important thing for me, if Chelsea came looking for Theo, yes, I would love Theo to join Chelsea or Arsenal, but it's just very difficult as a family, and it's just a strain that it's then going to put on you as a parent, you as a family, as the player, the support that they're going to have at school. So yeah, everyone's different, and some chase the badge, which that's not a problem. It sounds amazing when your son is at or daughter is at a Cat 1 club. But me as a father, me as a parent, if I've got a full day at work, I've then got to be a taxi driver to my son. I'm going to do a bit of work in the car, then got to drive him home, then got to do this, then got like, how long can you keep that going for till it has a strain on you? My opinion,
no,
I may be wrong.
And I definitely agree with you, Dad. I think as all the parents who are currently watching and not watching know, this becomes your life as well. So you are dedicating every bit of your being, your time, your resources to this. And if you want to make this as enjoyable an experiences for your child as possible, then you don't want to be getting home, having rushed back from work, frustrated at your day at work, with your child that hasn't, put their boots in their boot bag and hasn't got their sandwich ready for them to leave after you've called the house to let them know that you'll be there in 5 minutes, and they need to, rush in, and then, it's an hour away, but is there traffic today? Is it raining? Is there roadworks? And then that hour journey becomes an hour and a half. And then you're there and you're frustrated and you're annoyed, and the car journey on the way to training isn't any good. And then your child does what children normally do, and is probably, today picking their nose at the at training and kind of like not too engaged with the session, and you're stood there getting annoyed because your child's not engaged with the session, thinking, why did I bloody well bring you? Like, there's better things I could have been doing. And then the car journey home is one of pure frustration and annoyance. So to your point, yeah, it really is like gone.
And sorry, realistically, your child probably isn't going to make it as a professional footballer. So you have invested, stats-wise, will back that. You have invested 3, 4, 5 years into this journey, and they will eventually get released. So yeah, it's just looking at the bigger picture.
Definitely. But listen, Dan, it's been an absolute pleasure. I hope everyone has been, anyone who's been watching has enjoyed this conversation. I definitely have. And had it not been for the fact I've got to catch a train in 10 minutes, and Dan's obviously busy as well, then this conversation could have gone on for a lot longer. I know we didn't get through everyone's questions, but I promise you, we will get through these questions over the course of time. So please stay tuned, please stay locked in. Please send your questions to Project Footballer, to myself at everybody underscore loves D, I think is my Instagram. Dan Edwards. If you're not already following Dan, please do. So much useful information and education provided on his Instagram alone, as well as obviously this one and mine. So yeah, thank you, Dan, and I hope everyone here has enjoyed today's conversation.